So here we are. We have possession. We own the Badger Cave. Some people have asked, in some cases over and over again, is this necessary? The answer is yes. This is bigger than the Badger Cave. Don't get me wrong, building the Badger Cave has a lot of practical and logical reasons behind it, but there's something more to it. There's something meta. To understand what that is, I want you to ask yourself, what's the first step to building a domestic violence shelter for men? Or whatever these kinds of services would look like for men. What's the first step to building services for men? The very first step. Is it having funding in place? Is it a business plan? Think about it. There'll be a test later. Some more red tape shenanigans on the Badger Cave front. Last year, the federal government of Canada changed its corporate registration policies so that you cannot register provincially automatically when you register federally. In the federal government's infinite wisdom, it not only failed to inform people who are registering federally that they have to register provincially separately, it failed to remove the fucking checkbox on its form indicating you want to register provincially with your federal registration. Would you like this federal registration to include a provincial registration? Please check the checkbox. Check. Because we're going to pretend like we're actually going to do it. So we didn't know we weren't provincially registered until the lawyer dealing with the title transfer said there is no such entity as Honey Badger Brigade registered in Saskatchewan. And of course, you can't buy property in Saskatchewan unless your business is registered in Saskatchewan. If we had known we had to register provincially separate from federally, this would have been done months ago. And it would have all been concluded. But no, we were looking at a 1 to 2 week wait to register provincially when we had to get everything done last Friday or last Thursday. Then the vendor selling the property proceeded to freak the fuck out and threaten us with fees and fines because, not surprisingly, the provincial registration office is being swamped with registrations due to the aforementioned change in the government policy that the government informed no one about. Luckily, we came up with a stopgap, purchased it in my personal name with a personal GST number and the caveat that it will be transferred to Honey Badger Brigade when our provincial registration goes through. Nothing can be easy, huh? And this is a lesson to all the ideologues who point fingers and shrilly chide the men's rights movement for not already having services for men. Managing the red tape of purchasing a small commercial property was a full-time job for the last few weeks. Managing the red tape for a shelter is a full-time job, full stop, every day. Before a shelter can even be put in place, it would need full-time administrative staff just to deal with the government regulations of running it. Think about that. The next time if you are opposed to the men's rights, or anyone else complains that the men's rights movement never does anything except online. In fact, this wouldn't have happened if we hadn't built an online community first. We are advocating for an actually disenfranchised group. By definition, that means we lack resources from the government, from corporations, from everywhere. I've heard our critics say that the civil rights movement managed to create freedom schools to combat the disparity in services for black children. Well, they lived in a different time. If they wanted to create freedom schools now, the sheer amount of money it would take to comply with government regulations would stop them in their tracks. So shut the fuck up. This entire Badger Cave project is living proof of just how difficult it is to get something physical up and running without even dealing with the crushing burden of the kind of government regulation you see in social services or all of the associated costs of serving an at-risk population. During each fundraising push, I asked you listening if you support the message, why you don't support Honey Badger Radio's initiative to expand it. In response to my question, Dick Kirby wrote the following. Answer, respectfully, you're just another female who has zero idea what males go through, but the audacity to pretend you do, with your hand out for a handout. End quote. Let me explain why I ask you, our listening colleagues, to think about why you don't help us, if you're capable of doing so. If you don't like us, the answer is obvious. You don't like us. I'm not asking you to support something you don't like. If you think we're frauds, that's fine. You're probably not going to support anyone you think is a fraud. You, evil subhuman, and Dick Kirby aren't who I'm asking for an answer. I'm asking those people who believe in the message, believe in us as a group. I'm asking you to ask yourself honestly why you aren't supporting. And the reason why I ask you for an honest answer is because, judging from the answers I've gotten, the answer why you don't support is a lack of confidence that you can make a difference. Well, those of you who answered why not when I asked why don't you, you did make a difference. Winston Syme wrote, "You're not a big channel, and you're already stunting your growth and potentially ruining the small regular audience you do have. You are massively overextending yourself and building infrastructure faster than the demand for it. You need to slow down before you bankrupt yourself in many ways. Be patient. I know you dream of being the MRA version of the Young Turks. Make me a sandwich. Or whatever, but at 30K subscribers, you're just not there yet." End quote. Well, we did it. Apparently, we're punching way above our weight. And to be honest, we got to 45K in a tenth of the time I would have thought possible. When I started the Badger Cave initiative, I thought I'd just need 40K to make it happen, and I would either make up the difference or the bank would. I thought I'd get 14K and have a long-running fundraiser for the rest. Every time something trickled in on the fundraiser, I'd apply to paying down the debt. I thought it would take a year, maybe 2 years to pay off the Badger Cave. Then the bank dropped the ball, and you all picked it up and ran with it, totally unexpectedly. Ran with it and made a touchdown. Obviously, we're not really defined by being a mid-sized YouTube channel because YouTube channels have audiences, and I don't want to call you guys an audience because that's insulting. After that stunt, you all aren't an audience. You aren't here to be entertained. You're not even here to be informed. You're here to be engaged. You're here to do work. And that's why I call you my listening colleagues, or as you prefer, my listenators. We're not a YouTube channel. We're something else entirely, and we're just going to keep growing. Today we managed 45K worth of resources at the drop of a hat to create a nerve center for our community, to help grow our community even larger. Think about it. If we were the size of the Young Turks, that fundraiser would have topped 4.5 million in 3 weeks, not 45K. That's scary. I don't even know if I'm ready for that yet. Are you? No matter what you give, you have to rely upon others in the community to make up the difference. If you give $5, you have to rely on the community for $44,495. You have to rely that much. You have to have that much confidence in everyone that's a part of this. And that kind of confidence is nothing to sneeze at. That's true about any amount, 100, 500, 40, 45, for $4,000. You have to rely on the rest of the community to make up the difference. It's the confidence of knowing the rest of the community's got your back that makes tens of thousands of people give $5. And when tens of thousands of people have the confidence to give as little as $5, we're on the way to having this problem licked. As a community, we've taken our confidence a huge step forward. This time last month, you could donate $5 and know the community was good for, say, $9,995. Now someone can put in $5 and know the rest of the community is good for $44,495. But in a year, 2 years, you'll be confident enough to handle 100K. In 5 years, 500K. In 10 years, you'll be able to do that domestic violence shelter for men or whatever helping men to that scale looks like. Because you'll have learned to trust yourself and trust each other. Because you're not an audience. You're a team. You're our team. And we're your team. Step by step, we grow. No silver bullets. No heroes. No tall warriors in woad paint striding over the field of battle. And no single triumphs. Step by step, we grow together. Just hard work, discipline, sensible risks, confidence in each other and ourselves, pride in a job well done. Those are the ethical principles of the farmer, the ethical principles that made the Roman Empire the preeminent solution to the dark age of iron. So how about some more comments from the fundraiser? Evil Subhuman Male writes, a, quote, typical business model for a video entertainment media company has been, more often than not, since the golden age of television, long before the internet and YouTube, to provide the content to the viewers while advertisers pay for the content creators for ad space. Most YouTubers are more than happy, thrilled even, with being paid ad revenue while not having to work a real job of managing a real business. When YouTubers start whining about how hard they work, they've lost touch with reality, end quote. Evil Subhuman Male. In the golden age of television, broadcast media had a monopoly on eyeballs. They were also generally uncontroversial and absolutely had to do as their advertisers told them to. This kind of oversight would kill us. Imagine having to answer to the government, having to answer to feminists in the government, having to answer to feminists and corporations. In fact, it's quite likely we would be demonetized. It's quite likely that we are going to be demonetized for being quote-unquote advertiser unfriendly on YouTube, leaving us with no recourse but to shut our doors did we not have other funding streams. I mean, have you not noticed the whole demonetization controversy that's swirling through YouTube? Been asleep for that. It's not feasible. As for not managing a real business, how does this differ from a real business exactly? Because we don't ask for money up front for our product? Because we embrace volunteer capitalism for something that we consider to be a vital service for the community? Let's imagine we were a grocery store instead that offered free groceries and was voluntarily funded by patrons or customers who could afford it, who believed that food should be free. This grocery store asked people at the checkout, would you care to pay for that? Let's be fair here. Running that grocery store is not any less work because the produce is free. Now, I have no problem with the people who come through, grab a bag of groceries and say, no, sorry, I just don't have the funds, because helping people who need it is why we make it free in the first place. It's here for you whether or not you can pay for it. But seriously, coming up to the counter with an armful of groceries, macking on an orange, and when asked, would you care to pay for that, retorting with, how dare you ask for free money? Does that really make any sense? On a more positive note, PH7 Oslo and I had a long discussion, or argument, in the comments, over business models and profit streams. Apparently I pissed him off, and then he donated. Go figure. PH7 Oslo writes, before this conversation, I had my reservations, some of which are outlined above. Afterwards, I felt like saying, well, fuck you too. After giving it some consideration, however, I've decided to donate anyway. It looks too much like a train wreck in the making for my comfort, but it's also one of a very few small number of this kinds of trains even being set in motion. And PH Oslo, after all of that, did donate. He's right here. So thank you, PH Oslo. It's funny, I get a fair number of patrons who say, you piss me off, I disagree with you a lot, but that's why I felt I had to donate. I challenge you, and you support me more. Go figure. I guess it's just the kind of group we are. Lunatics all. Anyway, to answer one of PH7 Oslo's questions about revenue streams, you're right. Honey Badger Radio's business model will never make a profit. It's actually sort of a little bit scary. Remember that grocery store story? Giving groceries away for free and asking for donations from those who can afford it is never going to make anyone rich. So for all of you who think I'm going to become some kind of first men's rights millionaire, I assure you that's not going to happen. In fact, I might take a second look at making Honey Badger Radio a non-profit dedicated to raising awareness of men's issues and telling men's stories, just because the model is really not for profit. However, Honey Badger Brigade will be a for-profit corporation, and the reason why is that we will be pursuing secondary publishing and possibly even tech projects separate from the radio show. Services don't make profit, particularly services you give away for free, but product does. So yes, PH7 Oslo, we are looking into diversifying our offerings for precisely the reasons you pointed out. And no, you didn't have to donate for me to care about your opinion. Alex Plant writes, unfortunately, Allison's in Nowheresville with crappy internet, so she found the cheapest, nearest place she could with good internet and place for stuff. Actually, Alex, having a business address puts me in the running for proper internet. It's still going to be a battle to get it. We'll need to cover $2,500 setup and $1,400 monthly fees. But we will get there in time. And interestingly enough, if and when we are able to win the fight for proper internet, we'll likely also be winning it for the town itself. We'll be improving the community. Think about that. Men's rights activists coming together not just to create a nerve center for their community, but improving the living standard of a neglected farming town, turning it from a third-rate location into something more. Okay, last letter. Bradley's wrote in again, so I'm going to open up this letter and read it to y'all. It says, sealed with friendship, open with a smile. Should do the Jeopardy music or some elevator music. It's too bad I don't have Karen here. She does great elevator music. Okay. Let's see. Florida, laid back and loving it. You are a special brand of awesome. Wishing you the best of luck with the Badger Cave. My thoughts and prayers are with you and the Badgers always, Bradley. It's always a highlight. And $7. $5, exactly what I asked for. Thank you, Bradley. Okay. There we go. I'm doing a call out for men's issues. I'm doing a call out to all men's issues organizations, egalitarian, ethical journalism, Gamergate, men's rights, and men's services groups to send your material to the Badger Cave. The address is 113 First Street, Kelvington, Saskatchewan, Canada, SOA 1WO. I'm going to make sure that we have it on display in our storefront for anyone who's interested in the community that we live in knowing what we do here in the Badger Cave. So that's everything. Father's rights group, alimony reform group, leading women for shared custody. If you have an interest in these issues, send your materials to us and I will compile it all and make sure it's in the storefront for people who walk in to see. And if you're not part of an organization and you want to just send in some dank memes or letters like Bradley or gold bullion like someone actually asked, address it all to 113 First Street, Kelvington, Saskatchewan, Canada, SOA 1WO. I look forward to reading it. In fact, I might read it online, on air. Romulus, the founder of Rome, stole the women of the Sabine tribe to secure the future of Rome. And the Sabine men raised a war party to win their women back. And the two tribes of men fought. Think of those Roman and Sabine men, defined by their tribal identities, about to die in service of an ancient gynocentric imperative. Your women are your future. And the Sabine women sacrificing themselves to prevent that destruction. And that sacrifice, forging a shared identity between Roman and Sabine. Because the Roman tribes could agree that they were Roman, they were always on the same page. They were always advancing Rome, even as they fought over it. Their competition enhanced Rome, challenged it to grow, and it did. Competition in service of a greater identity is what made Rome great. Social justice warriors have created an ideological tribalism based on combating genetic tribalism, ethnic tribalism, cultural tribalism, at least as they manifest in Western society, although that war is long won, to be honest. Genetic tribalism versus ideological tribalism. Men once again sacrificed for the ancient gynocentric imperative to uphold women's sexual value, even at the expense of men's lives and women's personhood. Men's issues are a signpost. They're pointing out the solution, not just to managing tribalism, but making it work for us. Competition in service of a greater identity. I asked you a question at the beginning of this video. What's the first step to building a domestic violence shelter for men? Is it a business plan? Is it having the staff in place? Is it having the funding in place? No. The first step is building a community that can make it happen. We made this happen. And how do you build that community? You bring together a large enough group of people brave enough, insane enough, engaged enough, enraged enough to question some of the most fundamental aspects of their beliefs. Bit by bit, reasonable goal by reasonable goal, you teach them to trust themselves, to trust each other, and to trust their strength together. You start with small goals, then you go for a bit bigger goal, then a bit bigger. You have to balance reward and risk. If you look through the last month's worth of comments on Honey Badger Radio about this fundraiser, you'll see the people chasing reward and the people fleeing from risk. The people chasing reward say that the Badger Cave location doesn't have enough merit. The people fleeing risk say that there's too much at stake. It's too dangerous, it's too expensive. There's always a balance between reward and risk. More risk means more reward. Less reward means less risk. In this case, I erred very heavily on the side of low risk. A comparable building in the nearest small city would have cost $500,000. Likely, monthly maintenance would be in the order of a couple thousand. So the Badger Cave is low risk in terms of cost. Making ourselves accessible to more people makes us more accessible to more people. Both men who need more help than we can offer, and also ideologues who want to create more trouble than we can handle. This location was right for the amount of risk for where we are as a community right now. And we won. We won bigger than I could have even imagined a month ago. We are brave enough, insane enough, engaged enough, enraged enough to question some of the most fundamental aspects of our belief about ourselves as human beings. We are a community that will be able to build a domestic violence shelter for men in time. And in building our community, a community that can care about men as much as the Sabine women cared about their men. And just like them, we are going to build a new identity along with it. And what this identity is, now that's interesting. I have some ideas, a proposal, if you will. Now that I have the Badger Cave sorted, I can begin laying out a roadmap. Just like the idea of belonging to a concept, a belief, a solution for the world's problems was revolutionary in the dark age of iron, when people belonged to their tribes and their tribes alone, not ideas. This new sense of belonging will defy all of that. You might say it's not really an identity at all. It won't be based on a faith, a religion, a concept how the world works. It won't be based on a belief that will solve the world's problems, because the world's problems are unsolvable. It won't be utopian. I'm pretty sure even if we take a step forward, we'll just be inheriting a new set of problems. But isn't inheriting a new set of problems the very essence of leveling up? There's one thing the feminists alive today will never be. They will never be first in anything. Last week, I did something sort of stupid. Friday evening, I told you all that you had another 6 hours to donate. That was, in fact, a lie, or a mistake. The fundraiser was closed at 6 p.m. my time, and I didn't know that it couldn't be accessed. And I'm very sorry about that. I had a lot of people who went to donate, and they couldn't, which is sort of funny. I'm sorry, but it's still funny. No, sir. So I'm opening the fundraiser up again for a few days to make up for my mistake. This is my first draft of the honor board. I like to make my mistakes and learn my lessons with lower risk materials, like planks of wood. These are the names of the first people, men and women, to support the Badger Cave. These are the first to trust themselves, to trust each other, and to be so angry, or to be so angry that they didn't care. These are the brave, the insane, the engaged, the enraged, the people who had to do something. The Badger Cave happened because of these people. If you're not on this board, there's still time if you want to be first too. Go here to support the Badger Cave, or go here to support our monthly payments. You guys are amazing.